Hello everyone, welcome to Career Launcher. I'm Sherry A Singh. I'm Product Head Civil Services Career Launcher, and today I'm going to discuss with you Current Affairs Part 5. And in today's session, my primary focus will be on something which was into news and still into it, is Most Favored Nation. But before understanding every dimension of Most Favored Nation, I want you to understand that what strategy you have to adopt when your prelims is very close to you. The D-Day is approaching every day, the countdown has begun, right? So for your prelims, let's have a look. There are certain do's and don'ts. Understand one thing, now the time has come that you have to perform. There should not be any sort of anxiety now. There should not be any type of discussion. I have left this. I have not studied it. How will I manage it? Please keep these apprehensions or confusions aside now. There should be no bewilderment. Rather, the crystal clear approach should be there in your mind that how will you do the performance in your paper, right? And this performance oriented approach that you have to adopt now will only come when you will start doing the revision. But some of you can say, ma'am, it was a very important topic, but somehow I could not do that. ये बहुत important topic था जो मुझे कल परसों ही पता चला, which I came to know some few days back that it's very important, and I have left it. Good, you have left it and you have come to know also. Now, instead of going through that bulky material or maybe a small material, you will say these are 2 pages only, I can go through that. Instead of doing this, instead of reading it, please do one thing. Start solving as many as questions you can now. More questions you will solve, more edge you will have in prelims. You can qualify prelims, I can bet, I can vouch for that just by solving questions, right? Because questions give you an insight what sort of questions you are going to handle in prelims. What is prelims? Simply your objective questions, right? The practice you will do. This will help you in the final examination, in your 2nd June examination. So for questions also try to solve through test series or anywhere you are getting the questions. Previous year questions are good source. Don't think that previous year questions can repeat, 1 or 2 maybe, it's a probability, but the primary reason for that is what is the pattern of UPSC, what is the level of questions that UPSC is going to ask or generally asks is all about that you come to know from previous year questions. And why UPSC is saying it as general studies? This is not GK, general awareness, it is a study, the word is studies. Because it is the demand of UPSC that whenever you understand or read any topic, you should be completely thorough with it. You cannot be only hovering at the superficial level. You have to get into the deep inside the syllabus and you have to understand, okay fine, this is something which has come up and how I have to handle it from 3 different perspectives. Number 1, from being objective. Number 2, by writing so many stuff, where some of your opinion can also be included. And finally, how will you present itself in the interview board, right? So that is why it is objective, subjective, and finally your personality test, because your complete personality will be gauged at the time when you will be sitting in front of the UPSC board. That is why it is not a simply interview, it's a personality test. So we have talked about some do's and don'ts. We have talked about don'ts primarily. Do is to do the revision. And there are no shortcuts. Don't start discussing now with your friends, cousins, anybody that I have studied it, what you have studied, can you help me with that? Help yourself. Try to create your own strategy. Every person is different, everybody is unique. I am different, you are different. And my strategy would have been different, your strategy will be different. So don't try to think or don't try to come to this level that this person has done so much and I'm knowing nothing. Or you're trying to take inspiration for somebody who has written mains twice, thrice, something. Okay, fine, that person is already ahead of you. Fine. So don't think you are lagging behind. Be your own competitor. Have your competition with yourself, not with anybody else. I'm not saying it just out of anywhere. It's my own personal experience. Even I used to compare myself with others. But finally I realized that it's always important to gauge your own growth. So with perspective to that, understand one thing more about prelims, consolidate your current affairs as much as possible. It is going to help you in your mains examination now, and also when you'll be sitting in your interview board again, you will be asked about questions which you have to interlink with current affairs. Today I'll show you how one thing, that is most favored nation, is also important with respect to geography, and how from most favored nation you can get some questions for your this international relations. Prelims is a minuscule part, I would say, rather it seems to be a big one, because initially when you don't write mains, or till the time you have not appeared for the mains examination, you feel that this is something which is the most difficult paper of UPSC. No, it is not. It is just the starting, it is just the beginning. And please don't go for any bargain with God, Bhagwan, bas prelims mera ho jaye, prelims nikal de, main ye chadha dunga, ye chadha dungi, I'll do this, and then finally mains to main nikal lunga. Mains to ho gaya bas. Don't take your mains very lightly. And now for the while, do not touch your optional. You are hardly 60 or 70 days away from your D-Day. You cannot now deviate. There is no scope for the deviation now. Please try to stick to your goal, and now the goal is prelims, not mains. Okay, now let's understand current affairs part 5. I'm going to talk about the first, the meaning of it. Most favored nation. Most favored nation, it gives you a very strong positive feeling. Why? Because it is most, the superlative degree that has been used. Most. Tumse acha kuch hai hi nahi. You are the best. So Article 1 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, in 1994 requires every WTO member country to accord MFN status or preferential trade terms with respect to tariffs and trade barriers to all other member countries. In reality, this nomenclature though is very confusing, which says you as most, you are my best friend, you are a most favored nation. So it gives you an inclination that if I, being a country, says you that you are most favored nation, others are worst, bad. But it is not the truth. It is very confusing. Moreover, this nomenclature is not right. It means that everybody is equal and we are trying to reduce the trade barriers. Rather, we are trying to bring parity with respect to trade and tariffs. So this debate has triggered after Pulwama attack, and we all know that we have revoked the most favored nation status that we had given to Pakistan. Accordingly, India accorded most favored nation status to all WTO member countries, including Pakistan, from the date of entry into force of the so-called Marrakesh Agreement, which has established WTO. Where is Marrakesh? On to your maps, please. I always say try to keep your atlas along with you whenever you go for any study. In your atlas, keep on marking the important events or incidents that have taken place, both with respect to nation as well as with respect to international part. If you can see Morocco in the diagram itself, map, it's towards Atlantic Ocean. We are seeing African continent. And then we can say Marrakesh. Marrakesh is in Morocco. And please try to see Atlantic Ocean, Mediterranean Sea. Have a very close look of it. Marrakesh Agreement. And it established, it paved way for the establishment of WTO. Right? Shall I proceed? I should. Now, again it's been written that though it sounds to be very preferential, it only ensures non-discriminatory trade. Trade which is done on non-discrimination basis. It makes sure that any country receiving MFN status avoids any disadvantageous situation in comparison to the grantors, other trade partners. And MFN status helps reduce trade barriers and results in reduction in tariffs. That's a very simple version of it. So in a nutshell, it is non-discriminatory trade policy as it ensures equal trading among all WTO member nations rather than exclusive trading privileges. So when I'm in WTO, when I have given this most favored nation to every country, they should also be giving me this again same status. It should be the sign of goodwill. It has to be there. But Pakistan did not reciprocate. Pakistan never gave India the status of most favored nation. Since India and Pakistan, they are the part of WTO, so both are required to grant MFN status to each other and other partner countries as well. Something about WTO. So whenever you understand one thing, let's see, it was most favored nation which was in news. The approach to understand most favored nation should not only be confined over here. यहाँ से शुरू हुई, यहाँ खत्म हो गई. Most favored nation पता चल गया, खत्म. No. Please try to understand about WTO. Understand about Marrakesh Agreement. Understand other important aspects which are associated with most favored nation. Try to see its failure, try to gauge its success, and then establish, create your own analysis. Those students, those who've been very consistent with us with respect to current affairs series, they are knowing one thing which I have been always saying, interlinking. Interlinking the information. Everybody is having information, I tell you. Anybody, you talk to anyone, anybody can speak about most favored nation. You randomly go to any shop, just enter into it and ask the person, do you know what is most favored nation? Because of the strong media presence, everybody is aware of the things that are going on and about these terms as well, which were earlier only for few people. But when in this arena, when everybody is knowing everything, then what we need to understand is different thing and is also the important point to know. The preparation that you are doing, you are trying to become an IAS or maybe a civil servant. You have to do administration. So for administration, it is important that you know the things in the real perspective. Media can say anything. Media can be pressurized as well, or it can be purchased. We all know certain lacunas which are there with media. But when you are reading, when you are studying, that is why it is general studies, you have to study and analyze and establish your own viewpoint by looking into the every dimension of the thing which is going on. You cannot simply take what has been shown to you. You have to analyze it, right? That's the significance of becoming an IAS officer. The WTO is the only global international organization dealing with the rules of trade between nations. I am also trading, you are also trading, so there has to be somebody to regulate us so that I may not exploit you or you may not exploit me as a trading countries. And the 164th member countries of WTO represent 98% of the world trade. 98, huge chunk, approximately 100. Even though it suggests special treatment in the WTO, it actually means non-discrimination. So for WTO, or in real terms, most favored nation means non-discrimination. That is, treating virtually everyone equally. In effect, then, every WTO member is supposed to be most favored for all other WTO members. I am also most favored, you are also most favored, he is also most favored. So everybody, we all are most favored. That means we all are equal. It is not that I am giving most favored only to one country. I am a country, you have to assume for a short period of time that I am a country, you are also a country. I am just giving you. It's not exclusive. The important point of most favored nation is it is not exclusive, it is inclusive. So Pakistan, in a way, never followed this concept of being inclusive. So trade is a different thing. Trade has done wonders in history. It was because of trade. East India Trading Company came to India and established their rule. Economy, geography, they decide polity. They have a direct impact on polity, right? So it is important to regulate trade because in trade generally there is exploitation. So in effect, then every WTO member is supposed to be most favored, and it is for all. It is about equal status. So what can be the principles of the trading system? Without discrimination, free of the barriers, and it has to be predictable. Now I have given you the status of most favored nation. It should not happen that later on I am trying to violate it. So a country should not discriminate between its trading partners, giving them equally MFN status. Barriers coming down through negotiation. There has to be some negotiation and barriers should be zeroed down. Foreign companies, investors and governments should be confident that trade barriers, including tariffs and non-tariff barriers, should not be raised arbitrarily. Tariff rates and market opening commitments are bound in the WTO. I hope things are getting clear to us. We are understanding every important aspect of it. It should be. So these principles of trading system, the meaning of most favored nation, WTO, a little background of WTO, the significance. This is something how you have to represent the most favored nation when you will be encountered any question. I'm not saying as it is you have to just go and write it down. Simply you have to extract the information and use it accordingly. Now let's come to advantages and disadvantages of most favored nation. So nothing is something devoid of any disadvantages or advantages. Everything, every incident, every situation carries its own advantages and disadvantages. You call it bad or good on the basis of, are you having more advantages? Then that thing you call it to be good. And if that thing, incident or any mishappening gives you more and more disadvantages, then you say it is something which is bad. So life is all about having a maintenance, a balance between good and bad. More the number of bad, we call it to be something which is worst. It does not mean anything which you say to be bad, or any person you consider that person is of no use, is very bad, is having no good quality. Depends what is the ratio of the things involved. So for advantages and disadvantages, again a little bit of your GS paper 4. Advantages and disadvantages say, number one, we will talk about the positive side. MFN status is critically important for smaller and developing countries for several reasons. Now USA and Canada, they are having a trade. They both are better countries. USA say you are most favored nation, Canada also reciprocates, okay fine. Already they both are stable economies. But if a small country in Africa gets most favored nation from America, now over here comes the impact. Developed versus developing or least developed. Here the impact will be humongous as compared to over here, right? So it is going to help a budding economy in Africa to get help from or to come at par with America with respect to trading, so that America cannot exploit this country which is rich in resources. What East India Company did, it only exploited us. The economy at that given point of time, we were having free resources, rich resources, they only exploited. So exploitation has to be stopped. That is the most important prerogative of WTO. So developed versus developing, one aspect. Developing versus developing. Developing versus developing. India and Pakistan, you can say we are on same plank almost, though most of you will say Pakistan is like this and that. And please do not get carried away by the sentiment that has been shown in the television, in the news houses, because sometimes they can be also populist or they can be driven by other interests as well. So we have to maintain a neutral stance, and after going through the intense study and research, then we will conclude what is right and what is wrong. Judgmental is the person who quickly concludes everything. बस ये बुरा है, अच्छा ये बात होगी बुरी है. Nothing is good, nothing is bad till the time you have done your own homework. The last one will be developed versus developed, or versus or with developed and developed. Developing, they are on the same plank. The impact of giving each other most favored nation is almost equal or will be equal. Developed and developing, over here the impact of or the result of most favored nation will be the largest. Over here it will be not so much, because already they are developed economies, right? So situation over here will be different from here, and this situation will be different from here, because our world is not equal. We are having still inequality. There is also World Inequality Report. If you find time, please go through it. So most favored nation status is critically important for smaller and developing countries for several reasons. It gives them access to the larger markets, to the big countries. It lowers the cost of their exports. So their raw material, they find way to the larger markets, and whereas those countries, they are getting good resources, but there has to be no exploitation. It lowers the cost of their exports since trade barriers are the lowest given. That makes their products more competitive. Best of all, it reduces the ill effects of trade protectionism. Now every economy is opened, so there is no protectionism. What is the protectionism? When you try to cling close to each other in order to protect. When you are stopping all the doors, when you are closing every window in order to protect yourself, your own industry. Even though domestic industries may not likely to lose their protected status, they will become healthier and more competitive. So it will include, it will give more impetus to healthy competition. Then if this is advantage, then what can be the disadvantage? Let's have a look. The downside of most favored nation is that one country has to give most favored nation to all WTO members. You may have a good relation, you may not have a good relation, you don't want to have some sort of trade with the thing. This is something which has been avoided, but Pakistan has never given us, so Pakistan has followed its own manner. This means they cannot protect their country's industries from cheaper goods produced by foreign countries. Some industries get wiped out because they just can't compete. It is one of the disadvantages of free trade agreements. So the barriers are not there. There is no trade barrier. There is free and equal trade. Equally, the product is coming from other country to my country. What can happen? That it can create some sort of trouble. That product can be cheaper, that the one which has been imported, it can be cheaper than the one which has been domestically produced. So it can distort the prices. Without tariffs, sometimes countries subsidize their domestic industries. That allows them to export them for incredibly cheap prices. And that leads to something which is known as, China is infamous for that, you know that, dumping. This is dumping. Dump कर दो. सस्ता माल है, dump कर दो अगले के country में जाके. आपने उसके जाके घर में जाके चीज़ें डंप कर दी, उसकी अपनी चीज़ें बर्बाद हो गई. These products are completely out of the market because you have dumped the market with super cheap prices, very inexpensive. So the ones, these products which were domestically produced, they have lost their market. You are directly spoiling the demand and supply of that country. You are spoiling it. You are not just doing that, destroying it. Also, the price distortion will happen. This unfair practice will put companies out of business in the World Trade Partners country. This practice is known as dumping. This can get a country trouble with WTO. We all know the significance of dumping with respect to China and the associated troubles which are there with it. Fine. So whenever we analyze one thing, we have to understand it. Number one, meaning, origin, then advantages and disadvantages. Till now we have seen this. Now let's see what we have to talk about further. Now why we are talking about it? Because after Pulwama incident, the topic, the debate of most favored nation again caught fire. It was brought into limelight, and primarily because India decided to revoke the status that it had given in 1996 to Pakistan. And Pakistan never returned this goodwill ever back. It never said, yes India, you are also my most favored nation. So we can expect some questions about it. There can be some ideas behind. India's decision to withdraw the most favored nation status to Pakistan means that India will not treat Pakistan now on an equal footing in trade as it expected to fellow members of the World Trade Organization. It is simply like you thrash it. मुझे नहीं बनना है तेरे साथ equal partner. You're trying to also pressurizing, and you're also trying to isolate Pakistan. The impact of it we'll analyze just within a while, but this was the primary attack. We are not going to have equal trade with you on equal terms. The move comes after the attack on a Central Reserve Police Force convoy in Pulwama, J&K, one of the most unfortunate incident that has happened in independent India. Now, Pulwama incident is again a direct question on your internal security. Internal security is the part of your GS paper 3. Now, we have to understand when we are saying to Pakistan that, dear Pakistan, there is going to be no most favored nation status for you. You can ask certain questions to Pakistan, can't you? But yes, your action of taking back most favored nation status should have some impact on Pakistan. Yes, normally speaking, it has shown that India is very angry, we are cross at you, and we don't want to have any sort of equal relationship with you. But we have to understand, in order to analyze the impact of the withdrawal of most favored nation, we have to understand how the trade takes place between India and Pakistan. So trade now takes place using 3 channels: official route, the illegal informal route, through smuggling along porous India-Pakistan land borders, and also Afghanistan, which may not be accounted for in the national income. So what has been smuggling and what has been the illegal things which are getting into the country, there is no accounting for that. And lastly, through mainly Dubai and Singapore, which have free ports and accommodate legal agents of traders from India and Pakistan. So the traders, they go to there, both from India and Pakistan. In Dubai and Singapore, they do their trading, illegal ones. There are no invoices which are being generated. That means it's again a sort of smuggling. And these 2 countries, Dubai and Singapore, they are facilitating it, right? So these are the 3 channels. And if we analyze, the trade through the formal channel between India and Pakistan is not of a high magnitude. The magnanimity of the trade between India and Pakistan is very meager. Plus, with this, I want you to have a look about Golden Crescent. We have generally discussed about earlier as well. Iran, Afghanistan and Pakistan are infamous and responsible for the supply of poppy husk to India. They create a rough crescent like this, and this crescent, which is very close to one state of India that is known as Punjab, especially the Gurdaspur border, Gurdaspur district, which is at the border of India and Pakistan, it is worst affected with narcotics, that is drugs. So this is the drugs trade, the heavy drugs trade which is going on, and this is known as Golden Crescent. Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, directly leading to Punjab. That is why you must be knowing about that Punjab is worst affected with nowadays with drug afflictions. There is a rise number of drug addiction. Okay, so it is also the part of what? Your internal security and your borders. How will you handle your borders? Now the controversy. On November 2nd, 2011, Pakistan cabinet decided formally to accord India MFN status. हमारे अखबार भर गए 2011 में, हर किसी ने खुशी जाहिर करी. Everybody was happy about it. That okay, now Pakistan has finally decided in 2011 to also accord us with MFN. But that decision remains still unimplemented. Now the situation has completely changed. In March 2012, Pakistan substituted a positive list of more than 1950 tariff lines permitted for import from India by a negative list. So the positive list, the list with which we were saying that okay, these are the products on which we are going to have trade, that positive list was being substituted by a negative list where there was 1209 lines that could not be imported, that cannot be taken. So positive list, it was being substituted by negative list. So now the status of trade before this attack was, in accordance with MFN principle and its obligations under WTO, India accorded Pakistan MFN status in 1996. However, Pakistan is yet to transition fully to MFN status for India, and it maintains a negative list of 1209 products. Now I'll answer you what is a positive and negative, as the words are positive. Be positive. Relationships are built on positivity, not on negativity. This is positive, this is negative. These are two lists. This positive negative ideally should not have been there if Pakistan would have given us MFN. Then we would be doing the trades on equal term. So 1209 products by Pakistan, these are the products which are in negative list, that are not allowed to be imported from India. These are the products which Pakistan cannot take from India. That is, India cannot export 1209 products to Pakistan. Right? I'm going a bit back. So, in 2012, 1950. So, these were the positive products which you can take from India. Pakistan can import from India, or India can export to Pakistan. These were the products. This list was being substituted by this negative list, which is more strong. Right? It is like you cannot do this. ये 1200 चीज़ें हैं, 1209 चीज़ें हैं which you cannot do at all. Now 2011 you are saying, you are practicing that we are going to give you most favored nation, and in 2012 you are doing such things. What are you trying to say? So in addition, Pakistan permits only 138 products to be imported from India through Wagah-Atari border land route. That means, if we are saying, to conclude my point over here, why this debate has triggered, and many people, many political scientists, those who are very expert in their international relations domain, they have also said that removing MFN status is going to impact Pakistan in a very minimalistic way. The impact of revoking MFN status is not going to be great. So it may or may not set a wrong precedent. You have to take other measures to get out to the real problem. Terrorism, you have to resort to other things. Simply removing MFN is not going to help you much. So in short, the fundamental problem with kinetic options is uncertainty with regard to what those options would lead to if Pakistan decides to respond. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to pressurize Pakistan, we are trying to show our anger, we are trying to show our wrath, even with the strike that we have done. We are simply trying to tell the world, also to Pakistan, that we are very genuinely unhappy with you. But we don't know to which thing how Pakistan will respond, or is it going to affect it at all. We know now, after much of the analysis, that MFN is not going to affect it. Removal of MFN, it is not going to affect it much. And airstrike furor and the controversy associated with it, you all know about it. So the thing is to have a strategy in order to control not Pakistan, not to curtail the economy of Pakistan, rather something which is known as terrorism. Terrorism should be controlled, it should be curbed, it should be wiped out. For this, the measures have to be taken very cautiously and through a strong strategy, and also plus this, India has to do some homework on its internal security. Just by blaming people, you cannot get away that it is also a failure of your own internal security, isn't it? It should not have happened. Pulwama attack should not have happened at its first place. It's a failure of our internal security. Plus with this, Pulwama attack also tells you about homegrown terrorism which is there in Jammu and Kashmir. Why youth is getting deviated? More employment has to be generated. So this deviation has to be controlled. More employment, strong economy, has to be there. So it tells you so many things. MFN is a small meager part of it. Pulwama attack. So if it is Pulwama attack, number one is the complete structure, the problem which is there in J&K. Then you have to analyze internal security, IR, the relationship that you are going to maintain with Pakistan, and also how will you handle the global menace that is terrorism. All these things are important. Terrorism has two dimensions. One is state-sponsored terrorism. Another is that India is now begin to suffer it is the homegrown one. Right? Please do some work and revision on it. So India would do better than a Pakistan in a conventional war of attrition. Attrition would refer to when two particles, this is a word of geography, when they attrit together, when they rub each other together, and in the attrition process they tend to reduce the size of each other. They rub against each other with force, and because of that rubbing with force they are reducing their sizes as well. So this is conventional war of attrition. War would refer to normal warfare. There are high chances that India can win, but it may or may not remain conventional. Now Pakistan will not go for conventional war. As a nation, as a country, they cannot do that. But there are certain negative things which are going on in Pakistan which can lead to another problem. And there would be attrition on both sides. If it is not conventional, the warfare is not going to be conventional. This attrition is on both the sides. The real problem is terrorism, failure of India's own internal security, and when you are fighting with another country, you are also losing your resources, right? So India is also going to get certain setbacks if we are going to say that only we are going to hurt Pakistan. Try to do the surgical strike of the real problem, that is terrorism. Also try to have a strong and a very clear-cut approach. How will you handle the problem, the increasing turmoil in Jammu and Kashmir region? So this is how you have to understand, this is how you have to shape, this is simply a frame, how you have to understand and create your own ideas into this framework. Now you can create a myriad picture, you can sketch something. I have given you the frame, that this is how you will analyze the complete incident of Pulwama and most favored nation. If you have any opinion, you can share it with me in the comment box, or you can directly mail to me at sherry.singh@careerlauncher.com. Thank you, and have fun with your preparation.